you wouldn't know how many calls I get from brokers, not even the brokers that I've used, just brokerage firms call me up knowing I have a property in that specific market. They bring it to me first because generally, if you have one or two properties in a specific market, you're willing to purchase more in that same market. And so they come to me before they even put it on market. I just got called yesterday, Tuesday, about a deal just down the street from my house. I've looked at maybe 5 years ago. It's back on the market, and the broker called me saying, "Hey, I got this deal. I'm not sending it out. We're not advertising it, but I know you have properties in this market. Would you be interested in looking at it?" It's like, yeah, I know the market. I know that property. It's like down the street. I go by it periodically. I can see it. I can walk to it. It's like, I know that deal. And so I'm going to seriously consider it. So,
Jason's like, I could be there tomorrow.
yeah.
That's the benefit to being local.
Yeah. So that's why it's good, one, to have those broker relations, two, have a deal already under like you own, because owning something just like opens all the doors up. Welcome to the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast, where precision meets performance in commercial real estate. I'm your host, Jason Williams, and every week we deep dive into the strategies and systems and stories behind rock solid underwriting. Whether you're a seasoned analyst, an up-and-coming investor, or a commercial real estate professional looking to sharpen your edge, this show is your front row seat to expert insights, emerging trends, and real-world underwriting tactics that stand the test of time and scrutiny. From market assumptions to debt structuring, cap rates to cash flow, we're cutting through the noise and getting to the numbers that matter. So sharpen your pencils and fire up those models. Let's get to work. This is Ironclad Underwriting. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Williams, and I am with always my good friend, my business partner and co-host, Frank Patalano. How are you doing, Frank?
Hello, sir. Excited to talk about a good topic.
Yeah, so one thing you need if you're going to start underwriting deals is you're going to have deals. So how do you find deals, Frank? Where do you actually go to get them, or do they just fall on your lap and then you pick and choose?
Well, for me, they just fall in my lap, but I'm not the normal bear. Um, there's a lot of places to find deals. My deals are mostly because I have a pretty strong business network, and I'm out there on social media. So every single deal that I see is usually from a partner I've already worked with before or someone that finds me on social media. So mine's a little different than the average. I don't talk to brokers or whatever else we've been talking on these, but I still have some pointers and stuff like that.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, I would say your network is probably your, not just yours, but the average person's best chance of finding deals.
Yeah, your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
So
Um.
definitely.
So and let me ask you this: how many deals do you look at before you actually start pursuing one, and then actually close? I
I
know what they
mean,
typically say. I think those numbers are wrong, but
so yeah, if I think typical with what you're saying, I think the number could easily be higher, but because I have the average person is showing me deals, they've already picked through deals. It's not as hard as it looks. So to go with that, I mean, I probably get a couple deals a week. I could get more. I try not to. And out of those couple deals a week, I try to really deep dive look at maybe one or two a month. And I try not to do more than two or three a year. But it's tough because you got so many balls up in the air. And like I said, back to that concept, the average person that brings it to me may have already looked at 100.
yeah. And I think, and we've talked, did we talk about this before? But if you have a buy box, if you know what you want to invest in, I think that weeds out probably 90% of all the deals that
So I'm not saying you're wrong. I would say that I'll call it multiple buy boxes because there's certain buy boxes based on the market. And I like to be in different markets. And
yeah,
sometimes I'm working with different teams. So for example, obviously I can have a buy box with you for North Texas, which is going to be different from my buy box with my team in South Carolina. And it's definitely going to be different from my buy box for outside the country. And obviously, I'm different, but I'm going to take a look at other things as well. So right now we're working on a deal in the state of Washington, and
Yeah.
everybody else tells me they would never invest in Washington, but for the right deal, I'm going to do it.
Okay. So and you want to invest in every state anyway, as sort of
That
like
was
a
that was what I joked that that's one of my goals. It's not necessity. I mean, I don't need to say, oh my God, I have to invest in Hawaii no matter what. I don't care how bad the deal is, stuff like that. But it would be nice. I mean, I've invested probably in 15 or 16 states so far.
yeah. I've invested in one.
Yes, but you're in a good state. See, you got to realize that I started by investing in Rhode Island, which is arguably tax hell and one of the worst places in the country to start a business. So I had to diversify across the fruited plain if I want to take advantage of some of the benefits of living in a American society. You know,
Yeah. One thing I will say is once you find your first deal and you buy it and you own it, the deals just start coming in. I mean, you're going to see deals that you haven't even thought of or even want to consider, but they're just coming in, and that goes into like one of the main ways to source deals is having a broker relationship. Um,
definitely.
so one, you have to develop these relationships before you can actually buy. You want the broker to know you. It's hard to just start from scratch, not go into a broker's office, say, hey, give me a deal, I'm going to buy it, and they're going to laugh you out of their office. So you need to like cultivate these relationships, and that's when having someone like Angel Williams on your team, who's the chief relationship officer, um, can do those things.
No, I agree with you 100%. So, for example, we have that deal that we closed in Oklahoma, and there are specifically extra lots in the subdivision that we don't own. And we sent our broker out to try to connect with all of those people because we want to buy them all.
Yeah. Um, but and our first deal, Angel and I went out four wheeling with the broker on one Saturday before we were even under contract. We were looking at a deal. We knew who the broker was, and it's like, yeah, we went out four wheeling with him, got stuck, he helped to pull us out, and we all had a good time, and we ended up closing on that deal. So definitely worth it in that regard. But also, after you've closed a deal, brokers know that you can close a deal. And so brokers want to know that you can close. They want a surety of close. They want to know that they're not just wasting their time. No, not every deal goes through, but the likelihood of it happening is better if you've already done it once. So it is hard to do your first deal without doing anything. It's possible. Angel and I have done it, um, but it is hard. But once you get over that hurdle, and I think Julianne Peterson and others call it law of the first deal or something. Once you get over that first hurdle, the other deals start coming in and are a whole lot easier, or at least in that regard.
I'm not saying it wrong, but I would also say that, especially with brokers, those relationships, you closing on a property is still market specific.
Mhm.
So, like, they don't care that I've closed deals in West Virginia or Nebraska. They only care that I've closed deals in the market they're
I think
in
that
general.
depends. I think that depends on the size of the brokerage. If you get
That's
one of
fair.
those national wide brokerages that have markets in DFW, North Texas, and Chicago, and South Carolina, if they see that you have a deal and you've worked with them before in Texas, they're going to be more likely to work with you in South Carolina. Now, granted, it's going to be a totally different broker, but it's still under the same brokerage.
Same umbrella. I get it. Yeah, I can see that. Based on your numbers, how many deals do you think the average person looks at, and what have you heard?
So I always have been told when I started out, you're going to look through 100 deals for every one that you close. I've also heard that it could be 1,000 for every one that you close. I and in that regard, are you considering my email box full of deals that I just skimmed through because I'm not planning on even investing in that neighborhood? Does that count as one of the 500 or no? Because I wouldn't consider that, but I'm not looking at 500 deals for every one that I close either. Um, I do have a specific buy box. If one, you're not in the market that I'm looking in, I'm not even going to look. That's just straight off the bat. If you're not in the market I'm looking in, I'm not going to even consider. Um, and two, the market I'm looking in doesn't have 500 complexes for me to even underwrite, so I can't even look at those. I will probably look at every single mark or every single complex in my market, and I probably have done maybe 85% of those at some point. I've bought a couple of them, but some of them just don't make sense. And like I said, you get your buy box, you can start narrowing it down, and you'll start seeing what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And no, not every deal makes sense. And the narrower your buy box, the less deals are going to come through, and so the less deals you're going to be making. So
I don't even call them deals. I usually call them opportunities. And I would say that most opportunities don't make sense. And I agree with you on deals reviewed because your buy box is nice and tight. My buy box can be tight in some markets or some aspects, but very I'm willing to look at anything. But if somebody sends me, because don't forget, I also buy businesses.
yeah,
So if somebody sends me something in the middle of Wyoming that has no interest to me, that wouldn't count as one of my deals reviewed.
yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
wouldn't do that either. Even if it's in a town, a tiny town like an hour away from my market, I don't consider that.
Yeah.
So, so, but the majority of deals that I see come from brokers. Once you sign up with a broker, and the best way to sign up for a broker is go to the brokerage site, find the region you want to invest in, find a property, and click the link. You're going to have to sign a confidentiality agreement. You're going to be able to download the financials. And then after that, you're on that broker's list. They're going to call you, they're going to email you, they're going to find out, they're going to know which deals you actually downloaded to look at. And that, and while it can be overwhelming if you do it too much, that is a good way to at least start learning who the brokers are. Brokers change companies all the time, or at least in my market. I know people who switch from a Marcus Millichap, GREA to whatever, and they just bounce back and forth. Because I mean, everybody's looking for the greener pastures, and your brokers are typically what W-2 employees, maybe on a commission or something, and they see a greener pasture over there, so they move. But the relationship is with one, the brokerage, and two, the broker individually. So
I mean, the same thing happens with mortgage brokers as well. You know, you build a
yeah,
relationship with one, and you try to stick with them, especially if they keep producing good results for you.
yeah. Um, so that is how you get at least on the brokerage's firm or their lists is go to their website. They typically have a convoluted website, but eventually you can find their listings page. You can click on a link from a property that looks good and sign up that way. Um, Other ways to find deals, if you're not using a broker, you can have relationships with other owners. This is a little bit harder because a lot of owners are not just individuals. Usually there is a shot caller, but it's an entity that you have to track down. And if you know them specifically, yes, you can develop that relationship. But if not, it's going to be hard. Um, and so this is also when a broker comes in handy because a broker's job, they go in and they track down all the owners of properties and try to get people to sell all the time. Once you buy a property, brokers are going to be hounding you. Say, hey, are you interested in selling, or how's that going? And they're going to start feeling the waters and seeing if you're ready to sell your property, or if you need to refi, or if they always ask if they can help in any way. And one, they want to be helpful, but two, they're trying to build a relationship with you, the owner, so that you'll use them whenever it comes time to sell. So
I mean, we've had messages to sell our properties, right, in North Texas. We've had people
yeah,
reach out, email, stuff like that.
yeah, and I always get those. If you've ever owned any rental property, you always get letters, whether it's a single family or multifamily. You always get letters saying, "Hey, I'm trying to buy such and such, and your property fits that bill. I offer you all cash deal price. Call me if you're interested." I get those on my large multifamily. I get those on my single family. So if you are interested in doing that, you can cold call, you can send out those kind of letters. Those you can do bandit signs. I don't recommend it, especially for commercial, but you
Yeah.
can.
No, I
Um,
agree with you 100% because especially in the apartment complex scene, I mean, a portion of the owners are local, but many owners are not. Uh, number one, and number two, this is not like residential where on one street there's going to be 65 houses. There might only be three apartment complexes. So bandit signs or whatever else are not the right strategy. Yeah.
yeah, and I've had people call me about one of my complexes trying to buy it, and they think it's a single family. So when I tell them I'll take 8 million for it, they kind of just laugh because they think it's a single family house, and they don't even really understand what they're getting at. So, no, don't I don't recommend doing the flyers, doing the mailers, unless you know exactly what you're getting into. I'm not going to teach anybody to do that personally. Um, and there's really no like MLS for apartments. Is there?
Well,
I
our
mean,
closest MLS is Crexy and Loop now, right?
yeah. Um, LoopNet is I've been told is where deals go to die, but I also know people who've made killer deals off LoopNet deals before. So, um, like one of the tallest buildings downtown where I live was bought on LoopNet for $300,000.
And it's worth a lot more than that.
Yeah, it's worth a lot more than that, and it cash flows neutrally at 20% occupied. So,
Oof. That sounds like a delicious number.
yeah. Um, but there's also uh,
Hold on. The question is it 20% occupied right now?
I believe it is. I believe there are some floors in it that are empty or storage, but I believe that it is at least 20% occupied. And it might be 20% occupied by area because you pay per square foot in large like office space, retail space like that. Um, so
I could definitely get off task, but we should focus back more on deals.
um so you also mentioned Crexi, Crexii,
I think Crexy bought LoopNet a couple of years ago, but they're still running as two separate platforms.
Yeah. Um, let's see.
So back to the concept. So broker relationships was the first one you're talking about.
Yep.
Most of the big deals will be run through a broker because the seller doesn't want to waste their time. They want it to be sent out to good quality buyers that can close.
Yeah.
So they want to pay 3% for that or whatever can be negotiated. So once the broker has it, then they might start to show it, like not officially on market. They might start showing off market to their best clients.
So yes, and that's where being an owner comes in. You wouldn't know how many calls I get from brokers, not even the brokers that I've used, just brokerage firms call me up knowing I have a property in that specific market. They bring it to me first because generally, if you have one or two properties in a specific market, you're willing to purchase more in that same market. And so they come to me before they even put it on market. I just got called yesterday, Tuesday, um, about a deal just down the street from my house. I've looked at maybe 5 years ago. It's back on the market, and the broker called me saying, "Hey, I got this deal. I'm not sending it out. We're not advertising it, but I know you have properties in this market. Would you be interested in looking at it?" It's like, yeah, I know the market. I know that property. It's like down the street. I go by it periodically. I can see it. I can walk to it. It's like I know that deal, and so I'm gonna seriously consider it. So
Jason's like, I could be there tomorrow.
yeah,
That's the benefit to being local.
yeah. So that's why it's good, one, to have those broker relations, two, have a deal already under like you own, because owning something just like opens all the doors up. Um but what you don't want to do is go to a broker and say, I'm looking for a 60s to 90s vintage value add, and then list off 20 different markets and
And the price per door is different in every market.
list off, I'm looking for 30 to 300 deal or units per deal. It's like, no, you want a specific buy box and say, I only want 100 units at least. I
So
looking
Jason,
for,
what's your buy box?
so I'm looking for 80s or newer, 100 units or more. Um, the reason why I do 100 units, and we get into this in my underwriting course, is you have the same staff there for 60 units or 120 units. But 120 units is able to pay for that staff a lot easier because it's like half the price per door
Yep.
for that person. And so whenever you have more doors, yeah, it costs more upfront, but in the long run, it's cheaper and easier to manage.
Yep.
So I like 100 plus, 150 plus stores. Like I said, 80s or newer. Class B, I like. Class C, I would rather avoid again. If I brought a Class C up to a Class B, that's one thing, but it's something I'm going
Well,
to stay Class C. It's going to always,
one of the things I always talk about is Class C properties and then there's Class C neighborhoods.
yeah,
So,
definitely a
I'd
Class
rather
B neighborhood.
buy a Class C property in a Class B neighborhood if I plan on rehabbing and turning around.
Yeah. And then I have some other criteria, and you want to share these with the brokers so that they know, because they get deals, I guess, coming across their desk all the time, and
Yeah, more than us, obviously.
they don't want to waste their time sending something to you if you're one, not even going to underwrite it, or two, if you're going to underwrite it and then say no because it's not in your buy box. It's like, well, you need to outline that up front to the broker. So, um, another thing you need to do when a deal comes to you, someone's asking for your input or something, you need to work on it as quickly as you can, or at least give a timeline saying, hey, I'm like overwhelmed this week. I'm not even going to get to it until like Saturday or Sunday. I'll try to get back to you on Monday or Tuesday. At least give them a time frame to know, hey, at least you're looking at a deal and then you can move forward with it. Um, I always recommend touring properties when you can. Um, you always want to walk a property. The more properties you walk, that's just more repetitions you get in. The more repetitions you get in, the stronger your, I guess, muscle is for determining what a complex needs.
Yes, definitely. Get that exercise going.
So, I mean, I could walk, I don't even have to walk in a unit. I can just walk on around the exterior and I can start pointing out things like, all right, this is going to be $20,000 for this building. That's going to be like 100,000. And I'm just estimating. I'm not saying that's going to be hard fast, but at least it gives me ideas for putting numbers in for my initial assessment before I even move forward. Um, because you always want to have some sort of like capex budget that you can anticipate. So of course, after you do your due diligence, you're going to fine tune it, but that's another thing. So um, but yeah, it's deal flow is built through relationships, like we said, and in repetition. So what were our main sources? The main source really is the broker. The second one was if you know the owner. Third one is what, like LootNet type places, Crexy.
That's fair.
Um, and then the broker one also comes back if you're an owner because they're wanting someone in the market who already owns to buy. So, are there any other big ways to source deals?
Not at first glance. I mean, besides trying to find a wholesaler, and they don't really work that well in the commercial space. You can send, you're still finding sellers if you make your own mailers. So I mean, those are the main ways, which we already talked about. Either the two main ways is direct or indirect. So direct to the seller, indirect through a broker, or by the way, through a property management company as well.
Yeah, property management. They a lot of times know, or sometimes they don't know when properties are going up for sale. Um, But they know all the properties usually. They also know other managers.
Yeah, because they're calling to get rent comps too all the time.
Yeah. I will give a little story that my mentor, Joe Fairless, told me once. He was looking at a property, I think it was in DFW area, Dallas area. Um, and the property he wanted was just a little bit higher than they were willing to pay. And so he went across the street to another property and asked them, "Hey, are you willing to sell?" And it so happened that that other property was willing to sell at a significantly lower price. So he was able to get that first property at a higher price and the other property at a lower price. And with economies of scale, he's able to make it work with both of them. So there's that way is just go knocking on the door and calling up the owner and saying, "Hey, can you interested in selling?" So
It's cool. I've never heard that story before. You'll have to tell me where the property was again. Not now.
I don't remember the specifics on where the property was. I just remember him telling me there's one across the street that he was able to get at a significantly lower price, and that made his economies of scale work out. So
The economies of scale are super important in this.
yeah, and that's why you want 100 units versus 60 units because of the economies of scale. So
Yep.
So if you have any other ways to source deals, drop them in the comments. You can email us. We'll put them in the next episode if we get enough. Maybe we should do like a user feedback episode one time where we just go through
That would be a bad idea.
Q&A and feedback. Again, I'm Jason Williams. You can find me on LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever platform you're listening to this on, Instagram, Facebook. Frank, where can we find you?
Just about everywhere. I released another TikTok the other day, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You're more the LinkedIn person. I spend more time on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep. And yeah, we'll love to hear y'all's thoughts on deal sourcing, and we'll catch you next time. Bye. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast. If you got value from today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, rate, and share the show. And don't forget to connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or check us out at our website at ironcladunderwriting.com for more insights and updates. If you have a question, a deal you're analyzing, or a topic you want us to tackle, shoot us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep your assumptions grounded, your models sharp, and your underwriting ironclad.